creamy. Perfect. So, believe it or not, today we need to see two main tools. This is why. Because first, I will show you your next homework. That would be fantastic, I'll say. So, have you made homework 4, the one with for the chair?
The chair? No, I just saw that.
Okay. Wait for that. I mean,
okay.
Do this one. It would be more important. This is homework 5. The technique will be how to make this very simple thing.
I remember last semester people were freaking out about this.
Exactly. So, in this homework, even if it looks complex, trust me, there are many things that you already know how to do it, but there are just two tools that we need to explore. One is this, that is called loft, and then inside loft we will also see an option called deformations, and then there is another tool that we will see here applied for the head of the octopus that is called lathe. So believe it or not, we have to discover these two tools only today, and they are these. They are other two additional tools that will turn shapes, so 2D drawings, into 3D objects, but they have completely different workflows. We can start with I would say loft. That is the one that is a little bit more tricky, and then we will see lathe. Okay, because lathe then will take a couple of seconds. Also because loft is not even a modifier, it is a compound object. So what it does will be this. Imagine you make a section, so you make a closed shape, and then you draw a path. What loft does is it combines the section you have made with the path. It extrudes the path, the section along the path, and it creates in this way a 3D object. This is important because loft won't work if you don't create first two shapes at least. So we need to make manually two shapes. One must be closed. That is the one that for us will be the section of our 3D object. And it can be whatever shape, but it has to be closed. We can make it with line, with rectangle, circle, ellipse, whatever, but it has to be closed. So let's say we'll do this. Just something. Loft requires also a second shape to be created, and this will be used as a path to follow. Path for the loft can be, according to the result that we want, it can be opened or closed. It doesn't matter, but so we will start with an open one, so that makes more sense. And we will draw this shape. And then we right click to keep it open. Okay? First of all, what is loft? Loft, that is a compound object. It's something that you will find only after drawing these two shapes, as I said. But you will find loft only here. Look, you must go to create. Then you need to click on geometries. And can you see this menu? The one where you see standard primitives. By default, when you go to geometries, you always see that menu. Instead, what you do is you open this menu, and you will find compound objects. Also, if you remember, do you remember before you asked me, what about stairs for homework 3? Why we leave them, just to give you a spoiler, because in 3ds Max, when you want to make stairs, believe it or not, you go to create, and one day we will explore. There is a menu called stairs. So instead of trying to model, no, you build them as parametric stairs. So you can make straight, you can make U-shaped stairs, spiral, L-shaped. So for this reason, we don't even, I mean, lines on AutoCAD drawings are useful for stairs just to see from where they start to where they end. But that's it, because then it will be a tool. But anyway, we need to go to compound objects and see this. Loft is a button that is available here, but there are certain situations that will make a loft button disappearing. When this happens, it's very simple. That is, if I have no selected shapes, loft can't be clicked. If by mistake also I select both shapes that I want to combine, again, loft won't be available. What I have to do is this. I have two shapes. One for me is the path. One is the section. Before clicking loft, I have to select only the shape that for me is the path. So I select this. I select this shape only. Then I click loft. That becomes available. And the only button that I have to click after clicking loft is this tiny one, the one that is called get shape. So I click get shape now, and I move my mouse and I select what I have drawn as a closed shape. Ready? Steady? Go! Boom! This is what loft does. That is, it technically extrudes your closed shape along the path that we have made before. Okay? But if we see, we are, how can I say? We are using a tool that is not a modifier. It's not like extrude. When you use extrude, technically what happens? You start from your 2D shape. You apply extrude on your shape and you lose your original 2D drawing because your original 2D drawing has been turned into a three-dimensional shape. This is not, because compound object that is also placed into the create tab, what it does is this. Look, if I just select my loft and I move it away, I will discover that both of my original shapes, they are still there. And why this is extremely important? Because loft creates a new object, this is true, but the object that I have created still depends on my starting shapes. And why this is important? Simply because if I adjust whatever I know in any of these two shapes, whatever I change into the original shape will affect how my loft looks like. So, what we can do? Look, if I select the path, No, there is an editable spline, and I go to the Modify tab. You know that you can change vertexes, change segments, but see this. If I select the path and I move one vertex of my path, what I will discover is this. Whatever I change into the original path is immediately translated into my loft object as well. Okay? And I can do whatever. I mean, not only moving these vertices and watching loft changing, I can do whatever I know about editing the spline. I can select these, I can right click and make it smooth. So if I smooth the path, I will also have loft that is becoming smooth. If I delete this vertex from the path, boom, I will get the same result on the loft. If I divide, if I close, if I weld the I mean, whatever I know into editing splines will be immediately visible into the loft. And this is not only for the path, but the same exact thing will happen. Look, this loft has this profile that comes from this shape, the one that I made as closed shape. And again, if I change this one, whatever I change into this one, again, will immediately affect the loft object. And again, I can do whatever I want. Let's say I want to fillet these corners. Why not? So I fillet these, poof. And if I fillet corners of my profile, immediately I will see that my loft will have fillet edges as well. Okay? This is, first of all, basically how loft works. That is, you make a path, you make a profile, you select the path, you click loft, get shape, boom, select the profile. We need to see now a few more technical things instead. There are, first of all, like any tool that we use in 3ds Max, loft starts by using the pivot point as placement for the path. What it means? It means this. If I move this line on top of my loft, look, can you see that at the first look, it looks like the path and the loft are not matching, because on the inner curve is smaller while the path is bigger, and if I quickly move the path on the opposite direction, the same. Can you see that they don't match? Because in reality, I have to check these. Here is where my shape has its pivot point. So if I place the path where the pivot point is, that is about here, I will see that that is where the path is applied. So for sure, inner and outer part will be like offsets, so they will look slightly different. Why this is extremely important to be known? Let's see this example now. Let's say I make a wall. And I make a wall by using, like we've done with the AutoCAD homework, let's say I make a wall, but I make a wall by using line, and then I will extrude it. So see this, because this would be, I mean, you must be prepared, because it's a little bit shocking. But look, this will be my wall. And of course, it has to be a closed shape, okay? Because if not, when I will extrude it, it will be hollow inside, and I don't want that. But then, before applying extrude, I will do something a little bit different this time. That is, I will do shift and move, so that I make a copy. And I make a copy, not an instance, because I want to use one shape for first purpose. That is, I want to extrude it and I want to make a wall. And I've made this copy because I want to use this, even if it is a closed shape, but I want to use this as a path. Okay? So they cannot be instances, because if not, if I make instances, I apply extrude to the first and it will be applied to the second. So see this. Shape number one, I simply apply extrude. Boom. This becomes my wall. Okay? Till here. Very, very simple. But then, see what I draw next. Ready for this? I make this kind of shape that is something that should look like, you know, those decorations that are like moldings, skirtings, yeah, there you have on false ceilings and so on and so on. So I will make this kind of decoration.
Where is extrude though?
Extrude is, no, you have to, let's do it again. Oops. You select your line, one copy. You go to the Modify tab. Into the Modify tab, can you see Modify a List? You open it, and you will find Extrude. Is it there? Perfect. And then you change the amount, and you raise it so that you give height to your flat drawing. Okay? But now see this. Look what I have. I have this copy of my shape. No? So this technically, there is a copy. This will perfectly match the wall that I've made before. Okay? But see this. I want to use this closed profile. No? Has molding, so I want to apply this decoration all around my wall. But can you see where is the pivot point of this shape? If and let's see if I can make this masterpiece of illustration. Look, what I need to obtain is this. I want molding here, and then it will make a turn all around the wall, so it will be here also. So can you see where, let's change it green, can you see where the section is touching the wall? It's not touching from where now is the pivot point. The pivot point is here, but it is touching from this corner. So before using loft, I need also to know that if I move the pivot before applying loft, I will change where the section goes along the path. And if I don't do this, the result will be wrong. Because look, if I don't care about these, I select the path, I go to create, compound, loft, I click get shape, and I get this shape. First of all, it's even worse because the shape goes inside, so at least we have studied that we can go to spline and we can use mirror. So I will mirror it immediately, and at least the shape goes outside. But again, see, which is my problem? My problem is that the pivot of the shape is here. So the path will be applied here, and if I try to move now these on my wall, I will see this disaster. This is a dramatic. So I will delete this horrible thing, and I will do this. My section is touching the wall on this corner, so before using loft, I will do this. I select the section. Like I was doing for mirror, I go to hierarchy, I click affect pivot only, and I can do this, but I want to be precise because I can move it, the pivot, wherever I want. But if I want to be precise, I mean, like we are precise in AutoCAD, even in 3ds Max, I can use snap, and I left click onto my snap. But which snap I have to use? I need to use the pivot, and I have to use vertex. So just check with right click if you have pivot and vertex as available snaps, so that you can perfectly change pivot position in order to be on a vertex. Is it happening? I have to see now. So now that the pivot point has been moved on its right position, see what happens if I use loft. That is, I select, and I can turn off the snap. I select the path, I go to create now, compound objects, then I click loft, then I click get shape, and I will select my closed profile, and I will see this. Poof! Fantastic, isn't it? And you can perfectly also view, even from this point of view, that my shape is using that corner to go along the path. And what remains is exactly, if I also snap it, what remains is the empty profile of my wall. And if I then move it on top of my wall, I can see that it perfectly matches the profile of my wall. So loft can be used not only to make just weird looking things, but in interior design this is extremely helpful, because you can just retrace or make AutoCAD path that will be same exact shape of your room, and you can create skirtings, moldings, crownings, all these kind of decoration that are running all along a path. Okay? Does it work?
Yeah, just on compound objects now, and then it's loft. And then get shape.
Select the path.
Oh, good fucking god, what is it in packs here?
You know what you have probably done? You have done the opposite. That is, you have selected what was your closed profile, then click at loft, then get shape, and then get these.
Yeah.
Is it true? It is exactly the opposite. That is, deselect everything. So you can also go back or delete. Select what for you is your path only. With your path selected, click now loft, and then get shape, and then your tiny closed section.
Okay. Yep.
Now,
Perfect.
oh,
And do I just put on snap and move it?
yes, then you just snap to the vertex. We don't need any other vertex. And if you move it, you will see that it will perfectly match the wall you have made before, like these. Is it working?
I'm just trying to get snap to work right now.
Is it there?
Yep.
Yes? No? Perfect. Oh, that is what I want to hear. So, this is what loft does. But it's not done yet. We need to learn just one more thing into our loft. And look why. See this. Let me reopen your homework. And this should be perfectly visible here. Look. Can you see tentacles of these octopus? If you see them, they are round objects, and they have a round section that goes along a path, but they have something different. That is, they start with a certain thickness, and the more we go close to the end of the tentacle, we will see that the scaling of our circular section is going to decrease till it is basically 0, and it is a point at that. Okay? We can also see another thing. Look at this object here. Can you see it is written loft plus deformation? And again, what we can notice is this. This is a circle that goes along a path, but then we can also see that here it is thick, but then it becomes super thin, then a little bit thicker, and then it is again pointy. And last object is this one, the worm. And again, we can see that it is circular, so it has one section, but this circle goes like it grows and it shrinks, it grows and it shrinks, it grows and it shrinks. And we can read this hint. There is not a proper tutorial, but at least we have hints, and you can see that it is written loft plus deformations. So inside loft we need to learn one more thing, and then we will go to lathe. There is another. So we need to learn deformations. So see this. Just to make it easier, I will make an open path, and I will make like 1, 2, 3, 4 vertices. And I will make a closed shape that is going to be the profile. So let's do something. Oh, let's make a star. Why not? Has to be closed. So let's make it smaller. Ooh, very nice. Okay. So see this. Now I have a closed shape, an open one. So I select the one that is open, and this would be the path. So with this selected, I click Create Geometries, Compound, Loft, and I click Get Shape, and I get the star. Okay? Does it work?
I just did the
Yes, yes, yes. I mean, take your time. But basically what I've done is I have made one line, one star, and I'm using loft in order to get the star along the path. Is it there?
So which one do I extrude, the star or the line?
You extrude technically the star, but to make these happening, you always need to start by selecting the path. So select the line,
Okay.
then click loft, then when you are inside loft, click get shape and get the star.
Okay, yeah.
Is it there?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely. But see this. Can you see that from the beginning till the end of the path, the star has the exact same size. It is constantly going along the path. Okay? But see this. If I select my loft, so I have to click on the loft object now, and I go to the Modify tab, okay, if you go at the end here of the loft object, can you see a menu that is called Deformations? That is always closed. You open it, and there are several deformations we can add. We will just explore one of them. There is the one that is called Scale, okay, and see how it works. We click Scale, okay, and we get these weird dialog box that at the beginning makes no sense, but I will try to explain it as because it is too cool. Look, can you see in this dialog box that you have, we'll just make it bigger, look what we have. We have from into the vertical axis, we have from 0 till 100, or we could go from 0 to minus, it doesn't matter. In the horizontal axis, we also have from 0 to 100. What these numbers mean is this. Look, vertical is the scaling amount. So and right now you can see that there is a dot at 100%. Horizontal number instead is a way that 3ds Max uses to describe the length of the path, where 0 is the beginning of the path, 100 will be the end of the path. So you can also see that now there is a vertex here, and the result is that from the beginning till the end of the path, the section is keeping same exact scaling amount. So because the scaling amount is constant, we can see that the loft has a continuous shape, is not growing up, is not decreasing. What we can do instead is this. We can, by clicking this move button on this dialog box, we can start by understanding that if I click this point and I move it down, let's say till 0, ready for this? You already released your left button, I haven't. But if I release my left button, I will discover these instead. Poof! That I keep, for example, that at the beginning the shape as 100 as a scaling factor. So it means that I draw it like this, it starts exactly as I draw it. But then by moving this vertex down, what happens is that instead of being constantly the same, the scaling amount will decrease, 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 till at the end of my path it is 0. Okay? But in this, weird dialog box, let me tell you, we can see more information. So, for example, can you see that along my path, can you see these 2 green dashed lines? What they are is they are telling in percentage, so in proportion, where these 2 vertices of the path are located. So if I want to say, look, I would like to have a continuous but constant scaling amount from the beginning of my path till my first vertex. So what I can do is also this. Look, in the scale deformation, can you see the tool that looks like a spark? That allows you to add control points along your scaling feature. And because you have more control points, what you can do is, you go back to move, you can now move these control points. And these green lines will tell you where vertices are, so you can use them as reference. And in this way you will make like something that is constant, then it goes down, then it goes slightly up, then it keeps same value, then woof, goes till 0. Okay? And the result now is a little bit ugly, but it's okay. But last thing is this. If you notice this red shape that we are doing inside our scale deform dialog box, can you see that it looks like when we draw a spline in 3ds Max? No? We click, 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 and we make a spline. And you can also see that in this scale shape, all my vertices are corners. So scale goes up, then it has a corner, and poof, it goes horizontal, then poof, goes down, then poof, goes up. But even inside scale, if you need, you can select all of your vertices, or some of them. You can select vertices, and if you right click on these vertices, you can make them smooth. So instead of having sharp changings into the scale feature, you will see that you can have smoothed results, so that the scale will organically goes up, organically goes down, organically goes up and down, and so on and so on. And then Let me tell you now. Can you now see the connection between the worm and loft plus deformation? So technically the worm is a circle and something like an S-shaped path, but then along the loft, each of these represent an additional scaling vertex that has been added inside the scale deformation. And then it goes down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, and you obtain this shape. Okay? Let me show you just one example of something that you can technically do with loft. That is this. Look. Let's see. Exactly. If you have motorcycles, no, shopping images. Shopping. Exactly. Have you ever seen exhaust? Thing like these, no? But if you notice, look, this is round and it is thin. Then, by following the path, it grows, but it's still round. Then it is constantly keeping same profile. Then here becomes bigger. Then here bigger. Then here bigger. Then here smaller. So, something that looks extremely complex to be made, believe it or not, it is just loft and deformations. So, oops, you make these. Look, you draw the profile that for you is how the exhaust goes. And what is also interesting is that we don't have to be super precise from the beginning, because we have seen that loft depends on my original shapes. So I can even change it afterward. But at least I need two shapes. One is the path, and one is the section that goes along the path. So, and this will be my last example, I will use loft in this way. That is, I go to create, geometries, compound, loft. Oops, I made a mistake. I select the path, then I click loft, then get shape, and I get the circle. And I can see this, unpleasant result that is at the beginning and at the end, the circle is following the path, but the scaling amount is exactly the same from the beginning till the end. So what I have to do is this. I select the loft, I go to the Modify tab, and I open Scale. Okay? And what I have to do is this. If I look at my reference picture, I can see that at the beginning, and for a small part, this should be very small, extremely small. So, I will start by decreasing the beginning of my shape. And it really works like this. I'll make it even smaller, like so. But I can see that in the original object is not constantly increasing the scale. So for a certain part, scaling is continuous. So I will add a new point, let's say here. And I will move it like so. So that the first piece will give me a horizontal scaling kind of shape. Then it suddenly grows here. Look at the picture. Can you see that from here then it suddenly makes a step like this? So it suddenly grows, so I have to make a new scaling point, and I move it suddenly up like this. Poof! And this is here. Let's exaggerate a little bit like that. But again, for a while this keeps same scaling amount, so I make a new one, make this one, and I move it down so that it remains horizontal. And in my picture I am here. Then it makes like a super wide scaling transformation, so I add another point, I make it here, I move it up, and I get these. Then probably this is even bigger. Exactly, so it becomes super big. But at the end, it will finish again. I scale, and I just move the end. Fantastic, isn't it? But we can see another thing, that is our exhaust in 3ds Max is super sharp. The original one has a curvy profile. But this is not something that, I mean, I've made a mistake, but I know that my loft depends from on its original path. So I can also go afterward on my path, selecting vertices, right click and make them smooth. But maybe I don't need to make them all smooth, because this last part of the exhaust instead is a linear piece of metal. So maybe these and these, they should be both corners. And I simply adjust these parameters. Then I can move this thing up. Then I can move these a little bit down. These, I will move it here. These, I will move it there. Look at that. Come on. I mean.
How do you make it smooth? You get the line and you right click it? Or?
No. You select the line. You go to the Modify tab.
Okay.
You select Vertex first into the Edit, to the Modify tab. Okay?
The modifier list?
No. You have to select what for you was the original path. Then you go to the Modify tab here, and then immediately here, can you see these three buttons?
Yep.
Select Vertex.
Oh, okay.
Click it. Then select the vertex that is a corner and you want to turn it into a smooth. Select it first. Then once that is selected, you right click on it, and from this menu on left up you have to select smooth. By default you will see that all of your vertices are corners, so they are sharp. When you want to make them smooth, you have to go to vertex, select them, right click, make them smooth. And also you have to remember, when you are done, to click again vertex to close editing on your path. Okay? Well, look at that. Brum, brum, brum. We need just an engine attached to this.
And some wheels, you know.
Yes, some wheels, why not?
Handy.
And now, I mean, this is everything that we need to know for loft. That is, I mean, the one that is slightly trickier. I will show you one last modifier that honestly takes 3 seconds. That is called lathe. Lathe, again, works with shapes, but it is a little bit easier because lathe is a modifier. I will show you first an example, and then I will go in detail. But loft basically works like this. Look, you draw a shape, and it has to be, again, a closed shape. Can be, again, whatever, rectangles, circles, editable splines, whatever is closed. Okay? I will draw this particular shape to make something that makes sense. And you can see that while I'm drawing the shape, I'm not drawing it in a random orientation. But can you see that even if I'm working in perspective, if I read the view cube here, can you read the word top is correctly oriented? It's not tilted to the left, it's not tilted to the right, it's not upside down. But I'm drawing this shape so that for me, when I will make my 3D object, this will be lower part, that will be my upper part. And we will see this. What lathe does is this. Starting from a closed shape, it turns the shape onto a 3D solid object, but it doesn't extrude along the path, but what it does is it rotates the shape around one axis that we choose. And exactly as we've seen for mirror, and we've seen for loft, and we see for everywhere, in 3ds Max, axes are passing through the pivot. So, for now, I will make something that is slightly wrong. That is, I will leave the pivot here, but can you see this axis that is called y-axis passing here? And, wait, why not? Let's draw it like this. Oh, it was terrible. Okay, so see these axes. If I select my shape, I go to the Modify tab, and I go on the modifier list. Lathe is a modifier, exactly like I find extrude. Okay, want to see what it does? Ready, steady, go. Boom. What has happened right now is that lathe has rotated the shape around the axis. First of all, the reason why I've drawn the y-axis is only because by default, when you apply lathe uses y. But first parameter that you have to see into lathe modifier is that you can change it. You can change it that here where you see direction, you have these 3 big buttons. You can change it to X. So that we use this axis to rotate my profile. Or you can change it to Z, but this right now makes no sense because my shape is flat, but it will rotate the shape around my vertical axis. So what we have to know now is not that how lathe works, or I mean, because lathe just spins the shape around an axis. We simply need to understand that according to what we want to create, we need to move our pivot point to place the axis where we need. And I will show you several examples like these. Look, I just moved the pivot before applying lathe, and I move it here, so that there is also a small distance between shape itself and where the pivot has been placed. Okay? Ready for this? Look, I apply now lathe, so the shape is the same. I just moved the pivot point, and I will discover this. Ready? Steady? Go. Boom! A flower pot. No, look how cute it is. Okay. I can make a bell at the same way. I can make, I mean, whatever is round can be made with lathe. The only thing that is like slightly abstract is understanding which shape you have to draw in order to create the solid that you need. And the thing is not that complex actually, because if we look for round objects like a water bottle. Okay, let's see this one, for example. What I have to understand in order to make these in 3ds Max with lathe is this. First of all, I need to imagine, if this is my water bottle, can I see that it has one symmetry axis? The answer is yes, it is this vertical axis, no? And let me delete these, let me make it red. This is the symmetry axis that is making left and right side. No, they are exactly the same. So where I imagine there is the symmetry axis is where the pivot needs to be placed along this axis. Then what I have to do is I need to guess, okay, if this is the axis, what I have to do is I have to draw 1/2 of the profile of my object. Next time I will choose something easier to draw. Just half. But the shape can't remain open, because if I keep it open, when I use lathe, the lathe will remain hollow. So I will make also inner part. Because lathe works like extrude and like loft, it works with closed shapes. Okay? But if I do this simple preliminary work, I will go then in 3ds Max. I can keep these as a reference. And then what I have to draw, that's fantastic. Look. And when I draw, again, pay attention to the orientation of my viewport. That is not randomly. I'm not drawing like this. And then I draw. No, the word top must be correctly oriented. Then I draw this shape. then you can do better if you want. Or you can use outline. I mean, but this thing must be closed. Yes. We won't do that, but I mean, here we should simply smooth all these vertices, but this is not what we are interested in. What we are interested is this instead. Whenever I draw a shape, 3ds Max will put the pivot point somewhere. Okay? So can you see where is my pivot point right now? It is here. But my symmetry axis, there is also my rotation axis, should be there. Okay? So, again, how can I move this? But also, I want to be precise. For the flower pot, I just moved the pivot point somewhere outside because when I rotate the flower pot, the real flower pot has a hole in the middle. In here, I don't want any hole because if not, water will fall down. So even for lathe, I need to know that I can move the pivot. So I go to pivot, hierarchy, affect the pivot. But again, I need to use snap when I want to be precise. And I will use snap to the pivot and snap to the vertex. And I can move the pivot like this. Okay, not just randomly somewhere, but I will snap it to what for me is where the symmetry axis is passing through. Okay, now let's see if I'm right. I mean, if I know that I am, it's okay. But if I select my line now and I apply lathe, poof! I mean, it's not as pretty as the original one. Okay, but it works. Okay. Let me make one last example. And ooh, this would be great. This would be, I mean, I don't know why I haven't thought this before. But see this example. I want to show you two objects. And at the very beginning, believe it or not, between these two objects, it looks like there is nothing in common. But see this. Look at this table. I mean, this, first of all, is one. I mean, super famous. It's tulip table. But can you see that this is round? Yes, whatever. So first of all, the fact that this is round should start being like an alarm ring that says, beep, 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 beep. This probably must be done with lathe. But then I will show you another object. Let's see. I mean, don't ask me how it's written in English because I have no idea, but it's this one. This one.
I don't know the English word for that either.
Exactly. So we are, we are the same position right now. But believe it or not, can you see that this is round? But I mean, it's hard to see, especially this one. That is exactly what I want to do. At the very beginning, it looks like there is no connection between this and that. And instead, look here. In 3ds Max, I will draw one shape, and I will draw it like this. Again, I keep the orientation correct, so I can see top, and this is last time that I will repeat, because if not, I sound like a broken record. But see what I draw. I draw this. Look. I draw a line. I make my first vertex just somewhere without any snap. So snap is turned off. But because I want to keep my lines horizontal or perfectly vertical, look what I do. While I draw, if I hold shift when I draw, look at the way that I draw lines. Right now I can make them with whatever angle, but if I hold shift, I lock the orientation. I can't be as precise as AutoCAD, but at least I can make something straight. And I will lock horizontal, then I make click, and I have to hold shift, so I have to keep it pressed. And I will draw this shape. So my first 3 segments will be perfectly horizontal, vertical, horizontal. Okay? Then I will finish my shape by adding 1, 2, 3. So first, second, and third are perfectly horizontal, perfectly vertical, perfectly horizontal, and then tick, tick. Ready for this? Because this would be maybe a little bit too strong. Let's see this now. I should make these round, should use fillet, so let's use it. I just select these, select vertex, and I use a little bit of fillet, like so. Okay, nothing crazy, but see this magic part of using lathe, and it's too cool. I move the pivot before applying lathe. I snap it, and I snap the pivot on a very precise vertex that is down here. Look, this lower vertex on my shape. Okay? Why this? Can you see that because I've made this line vertical and I've made this line horizontal, the fact that I have moved the pivot on this lower vertex gives me this. Look, let's make it green. Can you see that y-axis matches this edge of the shape, and the x-axis matches this edge? Ready for this? Look, when I apply lathe, by default, as we said, lathe uses y rotation axis. So if I've made this shape at the very beginning, poof, I get my tulip table. Then we will make it prettier by fixing 2 things into the lathe modifier. But first of all, I want to show you this. And this would be insane. Ready for this? Look, same exact shape with the same exact pivot point position, rotated by using the Y makes the tulip table. But if I change the axis and I choose the X one, poof, this becomes the thing to make cakes. I know, that is rad, isn't it? It is same exact shape. Once is rotated like this, look. But when I change the axis, the rotation happens like that. So this would give me the tulip table. This will give me the thing to make cakes.
I was not expecting that.
I knew that. This is why I selected it. Okay, but let's make the tulip table that is more serious-ish as example. Last two things about lathe are these. Look. First of all, can you see that in this case I have these wrinkles here? You see this weird. If this happens, this is not always happening when you use lathe, but if you make an object with lathe, and you see those horrible triangular window faces appearing, you need to fix them just by doing this. Inside inside lathe modifier, there is an option called weld core. Can you see it just below the grease? I have applied lathe, and can you see this option called weld core?
Yeah, got it.
If you see these horrible things, check it, they will disappear. As easy as that. I mean, nothing more than this. But last thing is, can you see that my object, it is kind of round, but can you see that it's not as smooth as the original table is?
It's up to segments.
It is up to segments, because segments only by default are 16, but if we want to make it more round, like we did for the cylinder and we have made the roof of the house, we can increase segments if we need something more round, but we can also decrease it if we need something that on purpose is sharp. Okay?
So we made those Toblerone shapes, yeah.
Yes, like the Toblerone shape.
Yeah,
Exactly. But have you ever seen instead those tables that are made for people who play poker? There are tables where...
Semicircles?
Or you can make like... how many people used to play poker? 5 or 7? 5. Boom! And you make a table that has flat edges for each player, for example, but it starts from lathe tool. And believe it or not, this is what you have to know about lathe. Using closed shapes, moving the pivot, if needed, changing weld core or changing segments to make round objects. This is, I mean, what lathe does. If you want, I can make... Want to see another example? But be prepared, again, because if this was shocking, next one will be too cool. So look.
Oh, this is like cool shell. Probably after that.
Look, for example, I draw this particular shape now. I make click and I hold shift because I want this to be perfectly horizontal and this to be perfectly vertical. That's it. Then I draw this shape here. Perfect. Let's say here, let's make it like that. Fantastic.
This better not be a Mac.
And then check, no, this is not a Mac, but then I do this. I select the pivot and I move it by using snap. I move it here. Okay? If we want, I mean, no, it's okay. But then I go to the modify tab. I apply lathe. Ready, steady, go. Boom! And I have a table there. Believable, isn't it? I know, it is too cool. Technically, even if it's not super useful, with lathe, you can also make just less than 360, so you can also do this. There is like, you know, when we have seen cylinder or spheres, we have seen slice.
Yeah, put the eyes.
Yes, like the eye. I mean, you can do the same even with lathe, and you can make less than a 360 degrees object. Poof! And you can make lamps, or another thing you can do. This would be a little bit more complex, but see the hook. See the hook. Let's say you like old Fiat 500, but the old one, so the from 57, let's say. Oh, great. Can you see the wheel? You must be prepared because this will leave you breathless. See the wheel. You draw this particular shape. There is line, line, then these, then these, and then, I mean, like that. Okay? Look at this, because this looks everything except for the 500 right now. But also, we add this extra piece. Tick, 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 tick. Yes, we'll make it a little bit like that. Then like this, then we close it. And we have these two shapes. Okay? Now, look here. Select this one. I go to the pivot and I move its pivot here. Select also this shape and I move its pivot on the same exact position. So both shapes are using same axis as rotation. Okay? So now look here. I just make this one vertex and I make these vertices a little bit smooth. Fantastic. Ready? Probably not, but it's okay. Look, can you see this axis is X right now? So look, select shape 1, go to modify tab, click lathe. Remember, lathe starts always by using Y, but no, I need to rotate it around the X. Same thing, Select the second one that is also sharing same center. Apply lathe, not from the Y, X, poof, and I have the tire. No, 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 no. Look, just quickly put some, I mean, they should be spheres, but it's okay. I will put some cylinders here to pretend that they are 4 bolts that I have into the window. Then look, I just group everything. And now, fantastic, isn't it? I know, it's too cool to be true. Perfect. First of all, like and subscribe and stop streaming.